Across the country, surveillance companies have spun a vast web of tens of thousands of license plate cameras. Known as ALPR networks, these are mass surveillance systems that allow police to track your car's every move. The people selling this tech want you to believe it's for your safety. But how are authorities really using license plate readers?
Over the past year, we've learned that license plate readers have been used to surveil protesters and immigrants and even investigate abortion. New information, however, shows that police are using this powerful surveillance machine for just about anything they please. And their next search could be to check if you live in the right school district or track your noisy car. I'm Hudson Hongo.
And I'm Christian Romero. This is Effector from the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Later, I'll be quizzing Christian on his knowledge of surveillance cinema.
We'll also let you know about some of the upcoming opportunities to connect with EFF.
But first, we'll be talking about a new EFF report that exposes what happens when you give police almost unrestricted access to a universal people tracking machine. So today we're talking about automated license plate readers, or ALPR. And if you haven't heard that term before, you've probably at least heard of Flock Safety, which is one of the more prominent ALPR vendors. Christian, how do you usually explain to people what ALPR networks are?
Earlier, we mentioned like a web of surveillance tech, but I think the thing to really hone in about ALPR networks is like the fact that it's a mass database of surveillance that like other agencies are able to share with each other, even when they're not in the same jurisdiction.
Yeah, right. This whole crazy network effect where, your local city police department might have a dozen, even 100 of these cameras, but that through this network, police on the other side of the country can link into those and search the records of like, not just, where vehicles have been in their own community, but where vehicles have been on the other side of the country. And depending on the data retention period, this can be like well into the past. You can reconstruct the movements that somebody made deep into the future.
And with the click of a button, it seems like sometimes a lot of ease of use, which I think is another thing we're really concerned about.
So if our listeners have been following the reporting on ALPR over the last year, which there's been a very encouraging sort of movement pushing back on this technology, you may have heard about some of the ways that police are misusing this mass surveillance tech. I have to admit that personally, though, I was shocked by the incredibly mundane uses of ALPR our colleagues recently uncovered. Our friends Rindala Alajaji and Dave Moss wrote a report called More License Plate Reader Mission Creep, School Residency Verification, Background Checks, and Noise Complaints. Did you get a chance to read this, Christian?
With a headline like that, I absolutely had to. It gets more absurd as you go through the headline, honestly.
Yeah, and through the blog post, right? So our colleagues, they looked at ALPR searches made by police in various jurisdictions. In this case, they were looking at incredibly petty ones like noise complaints. Not even a crime, just like, oh, somebody reported like loud music. And so now police are using the nationwide surveillance network to search for cars.
This is really like nightmare scenario. Like, watch how loud you are when you go outside in public, and otherwise the cops are going to be on your tail. Like, what the
Yeah,
heck?
right. The difference between, sometimes police like to make comparisons to physical policing and say, oh, it's not different than just sort of having a police officer posted on a corner writing down license plates or something. But like it's a scale and resourcing thing where like, sure, but you wouldn't have the resources to have a police officer follow around every car that was maybe involved in playing loud music, which is what you get with this mass surveillance system.
I also don't know if I saw a police officer posted on the corner of a street if I would think, oh, I got to turn my music down.
Yeah, right. Well, very wild stuff. To dive deeper into this, I talked to one of the report's authors, Rindala Alajaji, who is Associate Director of State Affairs at EFF. Let's listen in. Well, hi, Rin. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Hudson.
So I wanted to chat with you today about automated license plate readers, or ALPRs. First, quick refresher for our listeners. What are license plate readers and how have these surveillance systems become so widespread in the US?
Yeah, great question. So, license plate readers are these cameras that are purchased by law enforcement agencies. The company that's most commonly known is Flock Safety. There's also Axon or Motorola Solutions, all of which sell those cameras, which are oftentimes mounted by the side of a road or at an intersection that documents every vehicle that passes by the camera, including the plate, the make and model, color, different, there's a scratch on the door, things like that, along with the date, time, and location where it was found or when it passed that camera. The main, selling point had been historically for these license plate readers to have a role in, say, high stake crimes like missing persons, stolen vehicles, thefts, whatever it may be. And that's really how they've framed the use cases for these cameras as a crime solving tool. But we've seen in recent months and years the ways in which this mission creep has expanded beyond just these very high level crimes or thefts to things like, protesters, abortion seekers, immigrants, and as we've explored in our most recent blog post, even things like searches for school residencies or background checks.
A few things to unpack in there, right? So the first thing, right, is that there are these mounted cameras along highways, different places, and the idea is that they can track vehicles, right? If there's some sort of urgent crime, as the scenario that police and these vendors like to talk about a lot, it's like, oh, you can find that vehicle really quickly because these cameras are everywhere. But because these cameras are everywhere and always logging every vehicle that drives by them, they create this very detailed historical record of where all sorts of different vehicles that have driven by them have been. And the thing that I want to talk about first is that, right, fundamental here is that police generally don't have to obtain a warrant or really any sort of individualized suspicion of a crime before using these systems, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and another point to highlight here is, unlike things like speed cameras or like cameras at intersections where police officers could say, there was a crime that happened at this intersection, and we want to be able to know which cars passed by and accessing that information. These license plate cameras instead create this detailed map of every movement that a car might have taken the entire day, so or months and years, depending on the retention period that the department has. So it creates this very detailed map of a person's whereabouts, where they go, what school they go to, where they pray, where they go to eat, who they associate with, all those things that are sensitive information about who we are.
Which is only made more extreme by the ubiquity of these cameras. I believe the Flock network alone is something like 80,000 cameras around the country. These cameras have been adopted at scale. They've sort of blanketed the country, and now we have this extremely vast surveillance network detailing the movements of all kinds of people, not just criminals. And right, to get back to this lack of a warrant requirement, we've seen police use this spying tool for all kinds of purposes, like you mentioned, beyond the high profile crimes that police and ALPR vendors like to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and that really has started breaking down that facade that these license plate readers and this technology is used only for these crimes and as a crime prevention tool, when in fact we've gotten public records requests sent to different police departments, and we've gone millions of searches back where we are able to see the search reasons why a police officer, pulled out their phone and said, "I'm going to look up this license plate that just passed by." And oftentimes when a police officer does that, the system asks them to put in a search reason on why they did that. And the majority of those searches are listed under something very vague, like investigation or crime or whatever it may be, not very detailed. But we've seen other instances where that becomes a little more detailed, like an instance from last year where we saw a police officer outline that in the search box that it was a search for a woman who had an abortion, and that case used 80,000 cameras, as you mentioned, around the country, even in states that protect access to abortion, to track this person down. And that's only one case. We've seen also through our public records requests places where departments were tracking down protesters who had went to like No Kings or Hands Off or ICE protests in the past few years. We've also in the most recent batch and most recent blog that we've put out, seen ways in which things like, as I said, background checks to get a job, law enforcement using these tools to figure out someone's whereabouts because they applied for a job, to use someone's license plate to figure out whether or not they live in a school district that their kid applied to. Um, things like noise complaints, which you might think is crazy, but why would a police department need to know your every move if you have a busted muffler? I don't know. It really shows the increasing kind of Overton window on like how acceptable it is to use these tools and just how easily law enforcement has access to this data. It's at their fingertips to just search whatever they want, and without these guardrails like a warrant requirement, we end up with the place that we're at right now.
Right. You're sort of talking about two different things here. One is that these tools can be used for incredibly insidious purposes and abuses, right? Like investigating an abortion in a state where abortion is legal, right? Immigration, investigating protesters, even sort of individual abuses by individual officers who are like stalking somebody they know. But then there's this other sort of category, which this great blog post that you and our colleague Dave Moss wrote about all of the, and this is really me editorializing, shockingly petty ways that police are using this, right? Can you get into that even a little deeper?
Yeah, yeah. So, for the school verification check, in the U.S., public schools are said to be just serving a specific area of a district, and people that live in that district are the only ones that are supposed to be, attending those schools. And the high crime of, having a kid go to a school in a district that they don't live in has led to multiple law enforcement agencies searching people's whereabouts to see if they live in that district. And even when we reached out to these departments, they had just said, yeah, our district is very highly sought after, so we were trying to figure out residency fraud. I think if the flock salespeople had gone to the local government that had approved this contract and told them, we're going to use these cameras to figure out school residency and noise complaints, it would be very, very unlikely that that council would have approved that whole, the procurement and the contract. They would be like, "That's not something that we actually struggle with. It's not one of our, top 10 highest crimes or highest concerns in the district." But yeah, and that's also the same thing with noise complaints. We identified 26 agencies that had searched things like music or loud or noise violation. There was a multiple loud exhaust just reason put in there, and many of those had searched like thousands of cameras for these people's whereabouts, merely for music, noise, whatever it may be. It's kind of the equivalent of launching an entire nationwide chase over someone's subwoofer or muffler, and it's bizarre, but that is in practice what's happening here because of the unchecked access to this data.
Suspicion of loud music. That's what we're using this nationwide spying system to investigate. And it could be used to investigate you for that purpose. I think the key thing that I really took away from your blog post is that it just illustrates how loose the governance of this technology is. How police are able to use, license plate readers for anything as small as suspicion of loud music to something really serious, like an abortion investigation. Yeah. So I- on a previous Effector podcast, we dove into this concept pretty deeply, called mission creep, right? Where a surveillance system sold to the public for a specific extreme circumstance ends up being used and abused for all kinds of purposes. And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend you check it out. But I did want to ask you, Rin, what do people need to know about license plate readers and mission creep?
I think what people need to know is that these are in every city at this point. And unless we push back and unless we reach out to the people in charge of approving these contract, in charge of bringing in Flock in the first place to present to the city council, or whoever the different license plate breeder company is, we just need to make sure that our voices are heard and that the facade of it being a crime safety tool is slowly falling apart. Maybe more rapidly now than it was previously, but it is falling apart, and we need to make sure that the people that are making those decisions are aware of that. Because as I said earlier, I truly, truly doubt that a city council member being told that these cameras will be used for residency checks and noise complaints and abortion investigations would be, nodding their head saying, "Yeah, let's approve this contract."
I'm glad you brought up the decision makers because I did want to ask, right? We have this pretty alarming situation where anyone with access to these license plate reader systems can kind of track anyone for any reason, whether it's legitimate or not. What do lawmakers need to do?
Yeah. Well, on the local level, we're seeing the most action there because that's where these contracts are being uh, discussed and negotiated, and that's where local residents have been able to push back and get those contract canceled. On the state level, lawmakers, we've been really encouraging lawmakers to push for a warrant requirement for searching these databases. A judge would never give a warrant to a police department to search for a noise complaint. I think that is the first step that we often push for, and then also different ways to pull back the access to this information. Things like retention periods. There's no reason for police departments to have your whereabouts for up to a year. Today, it's June 2026. There's no reason for a police department to know what you did in June 2025 and be able to map your every move from then up to today. So we push for as short of a retention period as possible. The ability for law enforcement again to prove that there was a crime done before getting access to that data instead of the other way around is really the big ask here, because time and again we see these different reasons or non-reasons that these systems and databases are searched, and the only way we can stop that is with some judicial oversight.
And finally, I did want to ask you, you talked a little bit about having our voices heard. What can individuals do about license plate readers in their communities?
Yeah, I mean, again, all politics is local is truly like my the thing that I run by. Reach out to your local policymakers, talk to your community. It's more likely than not that someone else in your district or in your city or if not in your city or district in your state is thinking about these license plate readers and is worried about them just as much as you are. So reaching out to your local representatives or your state representatives. Some states have also been introducing different reform bills on license plate readers that you can reach out to your legislator and tell them that you would like to see more of that. But yeah, just making your voice heard generally and having these conversations and breaking down this misconception that these are crime fighting tools and that more surveillance makes us safer is really what the argument is, by Flock and license plate readers, and that's just simply not true. More surveillance makes us less safe, and that's what we need people to be sharing with their community.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, Rin.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Hudson.
So, uh, as I said in the interview, we've talked about surveillance mission creep on this podcast before, but this seems like an especially clear illustration of that concept. Is there an example or metaphor that you think about when you think about mission creep, Christian?
This one might not totally check, but we have an outside cat at our house named Kiki. And like her job initially was just to, be cute. We'd come out, feed her every once in a while, easy peasy. And then all of a sudden she started walking us to our car and then walking us back to the door when we got home. And then she started bringing us small dead creatures. I did not consent to any of this. I did not sign her up for any of this. So she's mission creeping her cat duties, I'll say.
I like that one. I think that says it, right? Where, oh, you established like a relationship, a situation, a mission under very sort of narrow parameters. Oh, you come to the door, I feed you, whatever, and then over time, this just sprawls out. We see it time and time again when it comes to surveillance technology, where the public is told, "Oh, you have to sacrifice your privacy." For this surveillance technology, because of all these terrible crimes, it's going to stop, right? We need to do this to catch the murderers and bank robbers or whatever. But then once it's there, authorities are not using it just to like investigate bank robberies, but with the LPR, it's track government critics, right? We saw a case where ALPR was used to enforce a traffic violation, whatever. In any case, you're also much closer to the ground than me, Christian, on how people are thinking about ALPR. You go to conferences, you talk to people without recording it for a podcast. Uh, what are you hearing these days from people about ALPR?
I mean, it's like the number one topic that I think comes up, flock cameras, like, ALPRs are bigger than just Flock as a company, but they are just such a ubiquitous name at this point. I go to some conferences and I see people wearing like homemade t-shirts that have a license plate reader on it with like an X crossed out or something. Like it I feel like I've never really seen such a, like, unified movement of hatred for, like, one piece of technology.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people had the same experience where it's like they didn't really know that these were in their communities, and then they learn like, "What? We have, like, a dozen of these? This is on, like, the corner down from my house? I've never heard of this, and it's watching all the time? Who approved this?"
Yeah, totally. Even where I live, like, I'm pretty in tune with all this tech, and I just start driving down the street and randomly saw a flock camera. Don't know when that popped up, how long it's been there. They're pretty difficult to spot. But once you see them and notice what they look like, they feel like they're everywhere. Quick break to remind you EFF is a member supported nonprofit, and your support is what makes this work possible. If you want to help EFF fight mass surveillance, head to EFF.org/podfan. For as little as $10 a month, you'll get our latest member t shirt and join the community of over 30,000 EFF members fighting to make sure technology works for everyone. That's EFF.org/podfan. One more time, EFF.org/PODFAN. All right, back to the show.
Okay, so it's almost summer, and Christian, you're technically on vacation right now, so I don't think it's totally fair to make you take an actual news quiz.
I mean, I wouldn't miss this for the world, Hudson.
So instead, I'm going to ask you what are straight up trivia questions.
Okay, this might be worse for me, actually.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. In this case, I'm going to ask you to identify the surveillance or hacking themed movie. Um, and here's a little spoiler that they're all basically from like the late 90s to the late 2000s, which maybe was um, a key moment in my life. This does not cover the entirety of cinema. So yeah, I'm going to ask you to identify the movie, and then also at the end, I'm going to ask you what all of these movies have in common.
All right. We'll see how this goes.
We certainly will. Okay, first question. Will Smith, Nicolas Cage, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Sandra Bullock are just some of the actors who reportedly turned down the role of Neo in what 1999 science fiction film?
Oh, Matrix, easily. Easily the Matrix.
Good. I did not know this before researching this question. They were tried to get all sorts of people to take the role, including Sandra Bullock, which I think would have been fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I knew some of these names, like, the question said Neo, and it was like, "Okay, it's obviously this movie," but I knew some of these names were, possibly gonna be Neo. I think the movie would be totally different if it didn't have, Keanu Reeves, 100%.
It's fun to imagine. Okay. The maybe the difficulty ramps up too much too fast, but let's
Okay.
see how this one goes. Directed by Richard Linklater, what 2006 film used the animation technique known as rotoscoping to adapt a dystopian drug war novel by Philip K. Dick?
I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I've never even heard of the director Richard Linklater, so
Okay.
there's no way I'm getting this one, absolutely.
You know Philip K. Dick though, right?
I do, yeah.
All right. And
Yeah.
it's an animated one. It's an animated Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Okay. Okay. Maybe a deeper cut. This was A Scanner Darkly. Great movie. I
Yeah,
guess
I don't know if I've ever seen that one.
I would recommend you check it out. It's very interesting. It's this incredibly paranoid, bizarre movie about an undercover cop who like is sort of losing his identity because he's so deep into this a mission. And like, it has all these sorts of it's a futury drug that they're like cracking down on, and he's part of a futury dystopian police force. Very interesting movie.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I've never heard of it.
Okay, well, the next one might be even more obscure. So this might also be just a recommendation more than a quiz question. But let's see how it goes. All right. Based on a short story by William Gibson, what 1995 cyberpunk classic features acting roles by the musicians Ice-T and former Black Flag frontman Henry Rollins?
Okay, so I actually think I have an idea of this one because during our Guardian gathering, EFF's Guardian gathering a few months ago, they had a movie playing and it did have Henry Rollins in it, and it was in black and white. And I think I looked it up and it was Johnny something. I don't remember the last name.
You got half the title, that's half a point.
Hell yeah.
Johnny
Awesome.
Johnny Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic. I remember I remember the last name being something that was going to be really hard for me to remember, but I only caught half the movie and that movie looks wild. That's all I'm going to say.
It was 95, I saw it in theaters. I was too young, I won't say how young, but it made an incredible impression to me, and it wasn't until much later that I learned that, like, oh, this movie has a terrible reputation.
Oh,
Peop The critics at the time were like, "What is this?" I mean, it does have a cybernetic psychic dolphin.
okay. I think I skipped that part.
Actually, here's a reason that you should watch that entire movie, is that it has a fairly early representation of cyberspace as like a 3D world one can enter, and it's with sort of early computer graphics, and it's awesome. It's very cool.
That's on the list. For the vacation, I'm going to watch that.
Good, good. Okay, so to bring it back all together, do you know what these movies have in common?
I mean, I know Keanu Reeves is in oh gosh, what did we just call it? Johnny Mnemonic. And he's in The Matrix. So I'm gonna say Keanu Reeves. That's the only through line I can think of.
You got it. He also stars in A Scanner Darkly.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. I've got 2 movies to This is a good recommendation list. I'm down with this.
See, this is much better. I could just tell you what to watch, but now you feel like you've earned, and you also get the extra point.
Perfect. So I think I ended up positive. That's good.
Excellent. Well, maybe next time you can tell me things I should watch. And now, events and opportunities. Christian, how can people connect with EFF in the weeks to come?
Yeah, first up on June 17th, we're continuing our Affecting Change livestream series with our next installment, LGBTQ plus solidarity against the tide of surveillance. Join us live to learn how safer virtual spaces get built, how platform policies and government pressure are reshaping the digital landscape, and what platform accountability actually looks like. And next month, July 17th through the 19th, you can catch EFF at Open Sauce in San Mateo, California. You can stop by our membership table to chat about our latest work defending privacy and free speech online, and even grab some member swag while you're at it. And finally, we're attending TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco from October 13th through the 15th. Be sure to find us in the expo hall, where you can also chat about our latest work. Attendees can also get a 25% discount off any ticket type by using our code TCEFF25Disrupt when registering online. You can grab that discount code, learn about all the events we're going to by going to EFF.org/events.
Great. Well, thank you, Christian. That'll be it for this week's Effector. Effector is a podcast by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the leading nonprofit defending online civil liberties. Our music is I Dunno by Grapes.
EFF promotes digital innovation, defends free speech, fights illegal surveillance, and protects rights and freedoms for all. Become an EFF member today at EFF.org/podfan.
Your organization can also join the fight for digital freedom by supporting EFF and this podcast. Our work inspires a broad audience of activists, technologists, legal experts, creators, gamers, hackers, and everyone who relies on digital tools in their daily lives. Learn more about sponsorship at EFF.org/thanks.